Hey, welcome. Today we're diving into something pretty wild. We're going to look at these incredible moments in history that weren't defined by a huge battle or some world-changing invention, but by a single death. Those moments when one person leaving the stage completely rewrote the script for, well, everyone else.
I mean, think about it. Can one person's death really change everything? We tend to imagine history as this giant, unstoppable river, right? Just flowing in one direction. But what if it's not like that at all? What if it's more like a series of paths, and losing one person can make us take a sudden, sharp turn onto a road nobody even saw coming?
So, let's explore that idea. We've got three incredible stories that show exactly how this happens. We're talking about a death that absolutely shattered an empire, another that lit the fuse for a global war, and one that actually created a whole new religion. Okay, for our first case, we have to go way back to the ancient world. We're going to look at a conqueror whose death turned out to be just as massive and impactful as his incredible life. And here he is, Alexander the Great. By 323 BC, this man had built one of the biggest empires the world had ever seen. It was this massive, unified territory stretching all the way from Greece to the edge of India. He was literally on top of the world, with huge plans for what came next.
But what's so crazy about this is just how fast it all fell apart. I mean, at the absolute peak of his power, only 32 years old, Alexander just dies, suddenly, in Babylon. And here's the critical part. He left no clear successor. No one was named as the next in line to run this gigantic empire.
And this right here shows you exactly what happened next. The power vacuum he left behind was so huge that his top generals, they were called the Diadochi, they immediately started fighting over the pieces. What followed was 40 years of non-stop, brutal war that completely shattered his life's work. The unified world he built, gone, replaced by an age of constant conflict between these new warring kingdoms.
Okay, so let's jump forward in time because our next case is a little different. This time, a death didn't create a power vacuum. Instead, it lit the fuse on a powder keg that was just sitting there ready to blow.
This is Archduke Franz Ferdinand. He was the heir to the throne of the huge but kinda shaky Austro-Hungarian Empire. And in the summer of 1914, Europe was just a mess. It was this tangled web of tensions, rivalries, and all these complicated military alliances. All it needed was a single spark.
And his assassination was that spark. It set off this catastrophic domino effect. The Archduke is killed, so Austria-Hungary gives Serbia this impossible list of demands. When Serbia can't meet them all, those alliances just click into place. Germany backs Austria-Hungary, Russia backs Serbia. And just like that, within a few weeks, a local crisis explodes into World War I. The result was a global catastrophe, something the world had never, ever seen before. For 4 years, you had this brutal trench warfare, this industrialized slaughter and disease. And in the end, more than 16 million people, soldiers and civilians, were dead.
So, and this is the really crucial part, the fallout from this one man's death echoed for decades. It wasn't just the end of a war, it was the end of an entire era. 4 massive empires, German, Russian, Austro-Hungarian, and Ottoman, all collapsed. The map of the world was literally redrawn. And that harsh peace treaty they forced on Germany, it created so much anger and resentment that it paved the way for the rise of fascism and an even more horrific war just 20 years later.
Wow. So which one had the bigger impact? It's a tough one, isn't it? One death unraveled the ancient world, and another one basically gave birth to the violent modern world we know. Both of them just go to show how a single moment can completely change the direction of, well, everything.
Now, our last case might be the most surprising of all. This is a story where a death didn't just move borders on a map, it actually changed what people believed in their souls. It forged an entirely new religion.
Okay, let me introduce you to Prince Arthur Tudor. Now, you've definitely heard of his younger brother, the infamous King Henry VIII. But Arthur was the one who was supposed to be king. As the oldest son, he was the great hope for the future of the Tudor dynasty in England. So, in 1502, just a few months after his very important marriage to a Spanish princess, Catherine of Aragon, Arthur got sick and died. He was only 15 years old. His death kicked off a classic succession crisis, but one that would play out with a very, very weird twist many years down the road. You really have to follow this chain of events, because this is where it gets crazy. To keep that important alliance with Spain, Arthur's younger brother, Henry, ends up marrying his widow, Catherine. Fast forward a couple of decades, Catherine hasn't given him a male heir. A desperate Henry VIII asked the Pope for an annulment, arguing that the marriage was never valid, because she was his brother's wife. And when the Pope says no, Henry makes a decision that changes history forever.
The result was monumental. To get the divorce he wanted, Henry VIII just rips up his country's relationship with the Catholic Church, makes himself the head of a new church in England, and kicks off what we now call the English Reformation. All of it because a teenage prince tragically died decades earlier. A single death ended up changing the entire religious identity of a nation forever.
So after all that, what do we make of these three stories? We've looked at 3 lives, 3 deaths, and 3 completely different worlds that were born from them. What's the common thread here?
Well, when you look at it this way, you can see a real pattern. These deaths never happen in isolation. Alexander's death, it created a power vacuum that nobody could fill. Franz Ferdinand's assassination, it was like throwing a lit match onto a continent soaked in gasoline. And Arthur Tudor's death, it created a family problem that just simmered for years before it finally exploded. They all unleashed these powerful forces of ambition and conflict and change that were already bubbling right under the surface.
And this is why it all matters. The people actually in these historical dramas almost never see the real consequences coming. I mean, the guys who assassinated Julius Caesar, they thought they were heroes saving the Roman Republic. But instead, their actions triggered a series of civil wars that destroyed the Republic and created the Age of Emperors. History has a funny way of surprising everybody.
Which leaves us with one last, kind of scary thought. If history could be so completely changed by a single unexpected death, just how fragile is the world we live in right now? What unforeseen event today could totally rewrite the story of tomorrow? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me.